Russia threatens to intensify attacks on the Ukrainian capital. It follows Ukraine's claim that it hit an iconic Russian warship which sank yesterday.
If you're watching this, it means that we've surrendered.
The family of a British man who's fighting for Ukraine and is captured by the Russians plead for him to be treated humanely.
But I'm not sure if that's a comfort, because I don't know really how he's being treated.
Continuing tension in Jerusalem, 150 people are injured in clashes with Israeli police at the AlAqsa Mosque. Here, the great Easter getaway and a dash to the coast for many on the hottest day of the year so far. And after just one win in 17 test matches, Joe Root steps down as the England men's cricket captain.
And coming up on the BBC News channel, an incredibly difficult decision according to the Burnley chairman, as manager Sean Dyche is sacked after nearly 10 years in charge.
Hello, a very good evening. Russia has threatened to intensify attacks on the Ukrainian capital Kyiv if its territory is further targeted. Tensions have risen since Russia's iconic warship, the Mosque, sank yesterday. Moscow says the sinking was caused by a fire, but Ukraine says it hit the vessel with missiles. A weapons factory near Kyiv has already been partially destroyed in a Russian attack. Our correspondent Yogita sent this report.
This was the Mosque, Russia's prized warship in the Black Sea. It's now sunk. Ukraine says its missiles hit the vessel. Russia says a fire caused the ship to sink. It's a humiliating loss for the country. In what is being seen as retaliation, Russia's defense ministry shared this video, saying it had launched an attack on a missile-making facility outside Ukraine's capital. It also threatened more strikes on Kyiv if Ukraine continued to attack Russian territory. After the relative silence of 2 weeks since Russian forces withdrew from Kyiv, air raid sirens continued to ring from night into the morning. Yuri Gladchenko lives near the site of the attack.
I woke up to the sound of an explosion at just past 1 a.m. My house shook like there was an earthquake. Then I heard more explosions. The lights went out. I have no electricity or water now.
The area around the factory which was hit is a residential neighborhood. It's quite densely populated. It's only about a 15-minute drive from here to the center of the city. The attack overnight, a reminder of just how vulnerable Kyiv remains as a target. This city has just begun to come alive. People who were forced underground for weeks when areas around Kyiv came under Russian control are cautiously coming out for a moment of calm in the sun.
You forget sometimes that you're still afraid of every sound, even if it comes from your neighbour's house. Or if someone bangs a car door, you shiver and try to overcome that. No words can describe how scary it is. We can't be sure what will happen next. The future might be worse.
The images coming from the east show just how bad things could get. This is the port city of Mariupol, believed to be close to falling into Russian hands. It's been more than 7 weeks of war. Yogita, BBC News, Kyiv.
The grandmother of a British man who's been captured in Ukraine says she's horrified by images of him being shown on Russian television and has called for him to be treated humanely. Aidan Aslin was fighting with Ukrainian forces in the besieged city of Mariupol when he told his family he was having to surrender to Russian forces. Here's our correspondent, Emma Vardy.
If you're watching this, it means that we've surrendered.
The last words to loved ones from within one of the most desperate places on earth.
Run out of ammunition. Didn't really have any other choice other than to surrender.
For weeks, Aidan Aslin and his unit defended the heavily bombarded city of Mariupol, holding off Russian forces as long as they could. 2 days ago, his family received a phone call as he explained they were having to surrender.
To lay down our arms and head towards the Russian soldiers.
I knew that the ammunition situation was very low, and they wouldn't have surrendered if they'd still got ammunition.
The next time his grandmother and other family members saw him, it was Aidan in handcuffs, now a captive, being paraded on Russian television.
I don't know.
When you see those images, what goes through your mind?
I was horrified. Absolutely horrified. My heart stopped. His face is swollen, a nasty gash across his forehead. Having seen him, I know he's alive, but I'm not sure if that's a comfort because I don't know really how he's being treated.
Unlike many other foreign fighters who have travelled to Ukraine, Aidan was no newcomer. He'd become a Marine in the Ukrainian military in 2018, was engaged to a local girl, and had made the country his adopted home. His family say they can only hope for a prisoner exchange. But this conflict is also a battle of propaganda, in which it's clear Aidan is now being used by Russia to play a part. Emma Vardy, BBC News.
More than 150 people have been injured in clashes between Palestinian demonstrators and Israeli police at the AlAqsa Mosque in East Jerusalem. Tensions have been high in recent weeks as the fasting month of Ramadan coincides with Passover for Jews and Easter for Christians. Police said they entered the mosque to disperse a crowd after rocks were thrown onto Jewish worshippers at the Western Wall below. Here's our Middle East correspondent, Yolande Nell.
As day broke in Jerusalem's Old City, sacred to three faiths, tensions were rising at its most bitterly contested site. Israeli police say they moved in to disperse a riot by Palestinian Muslims at AlAqsa Mosque. Officers fired stun grenades and rubber bullets. Palestinians threw stones and firecrackers. The violence came inside the doors of the mosque. It takes hours for a fragile calm to set in, and we meet Omar joining the cleanup. He came for Ramadan prayers.
You just want to pray, and it's really heartbreaking to see one of your holy sites to come like 80 kilometers away just to get this type of behavior against you. I'm speechless.
Nearby, it's a special day for Christians. Thousands have come for Easter and to walk the traditional way of the cross.
It's incredible. It's a miracle to be here and to share this Holy Friday with all the people and to pray for everybody. We pray here for the peace.
But for now, those prayers aren't answered. The overlapping religious holidays were always going to raise tensions here in the Old City. People of different faiths are celebrating, but these narrow streets feel more on edge after the recent deadly violence and today's clashes. Elsewhere in Jerusalem, a Jewish ritual. Families are burning the bread banned during Passover, which begins tonight. Ilana says the holiday is overshadowed by attacks in Israel, which have killed 14 people.
You can't help thinking what will be the Passover experience of those families who weren't expecting to have one person less at their table, and it's really a national pain.
This should be a joyful time for Palestinians and Israelis, but instead it's an uneasy one. The lesson from history is that confrontations which start inside these ancient walls can easily slide into a wider conflict. Yolande Nell, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Here it has been the hottest day of the year so far, and roads and railways have been busy as millions of people try to get away for an Easter break. The good weather resulted in delays in the south and southwest of England as motorists headed for the coast or tried to travel via the port of Dover. And there is major disruption on some rail lines because of bank holiday engineering works. There are no trains at all in or out of London's Euston station. Tim Muffet has all the latest.
The long weekend, with queues to match.
We are a little bit worried about the traffic here. It's that why we came very earlier.
But this is Easter weekend, this is the perfect storm, isn't it? Exactly what you don't want it to be.
In Dover, just as holidaymakers are leaving, P&O has suspended its ferry services. Post-Brexit lorry checks are also said to be adding to the challenge. It's the first bank holiday since all COVID travel restrictions were lifted in the UK. The RAC estimates more than 22 million car journeys will take place this weekend.
The message clearly is plan your trip well in advance, make sure that your car is ready for a journey as well. In lots of cases, this is the first long distance trip people have taken this year.
At Willey Edge Services in West Yorkshire, for many motorists, the heavy traffic was worth it.
Had a long planned celebration of my husband's 80th birthday, so we're gathering in Sheffield, and my family said it has to be Easter because the children are off school and we're off work.
Just the hassle at the airport at the moment, it was just like I'd rather, well, I don't know now, stick on the motorway or get stuck in Manchester Airport, so I think this was the lesser evil.
Despite recent disruption, queues at Manchester Airport were said today to be moving steadily. But on what has been the hottest day of the year so far, some rail services have been disrupted.
London's Euston Station is closed all weekend, as is the West Coast main line between London and Milton Keynes. Now, that could pose a challenge for Liverpool and Manchester City fans planning to travel to Wembley tomorrow for their FA Cup semi-final.
The work has to be done at some time. But
Adam has multiple sclerosis and has decided not to travel to the match.
At the start of the season, most sensible people will have said that two of the best teams in the country are Liverpool and Manchester City. So there was a fairly good chance that one, if not both of those teams were going to get into the FA Cup semi-final. Well, the FA Cup semi-final is pretty much always this weekend, and yet there's all these rail works going on.
Network Rail says 95% of its services will be unaffected by planned engineering work this weekend. As ever, the advice is to check your journey before you set off. Tim Muffet, BBC News.
It's been confirmed that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex met the Queen at Windsor yesterday after flying into the UK. Prince Harry and Meghan are now in The Hague in the Netherlands for the start of the Invictus Games. The couple hadn't been in the UK together since they stepped down as senior royals more than 2 years ago. Brain tumours are the most common fatal cancer in people under 40. The issue was highlighted recently when the singer Tom Parker from the band The Wanted died at the age of just 33. But treatments and research into the condition has been limited in comparison to many other cancers. Well, now patients at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge are having the entire genetic code of their cancers sequenced as part of a research project. It's hoped that tumour mapping will lead to more accurate diagnosis and perhaps eventually to personalised treatment. Just to warn you, this report from our medical editor Fergus Walsh contains images of brain surgery.
I've got a rough idea of what's going to happen. I'm going to be partially awake, but I'm going to be woken up during the surgery.
Daniel is just 34. He's on his way to theatre for brain surgery.
I think that's the bit I'm most scared about, is being awake and having someone rooting around in my head.
Daniel has a large brain tumour, the round white area at the top of this scan.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, starting.
To begin with, Daniel is fully anaesthetised while surgeons remove part of his skull. But once his brain is exposed, he's woken up and must be kept awake.
Daniel, how are you feeling? Yeah, good. Excellent. You just need to be a bit careful at the back because that's close to where the part of your brain that moves the right-hand side of your body.
Before removing each piece of tumour, surgeons need to be sure it won't affect Daniel's speech or his ability to move his body.
I'm going to show you some pictures now, Dan, okay? I want you to just say what you see.
So at each step, the team checks his responses.
Well done, Dan.
Part of Daniel's tumour will be sent for whole genome sequencing. Its entire DNA will be mapped.
What that means is essentially we're looking at the abnormalities in the genes that we think cause the tumour in the first place. So we're really able to drill down into the molecular problems in the tumour.
Daniel's diagnosis, his future, rests on what they find in these tubes. DNA sequencing used to take months. Now it can be done in days. At these labs near Cambridge of US biotech Illumina. Not only does it speed up diagnosis, but reveals what is driving the growth of a patient's cancer.
Because this is low grade...
Just 2 weeks after surgery, Daniel returns to Addenbrooke's with his brother to receive his results.
This is a diagnosis that is treatable, but it's not a curable condition. Okay, so this is something that will be life-limiting. About 50% of people survive for 15 years or more. But I think it's important that you understand this isn't something that's going to go away.
Yeah. Wow, I don't know what to say.
Sure, well, you don't have to say anything.
Enjoy the next 15 years of my life.
He's gone 2-0 to them.
A few weeks later, I joined Daniel to watch his local football team.
The quality of finishing is shocking.
He used to play in goal. Now he gives advice from the touchline.
Life's very short, so I want to make the most of it. I just want to get the treatment I can to prolong my life, like 6 weeks of radiotherapy, 5 days a week.
More than 200 brain tumour patients are taking part in the research, with the hope it may eventually yield new, personalised treatments which improve outcomes. Fergus Walsh, BBC News, Cambridge.
Now to football news, and Burnley have sacked their manager Sean Dyche with just 8 games of the season to go. Dyche was the Premier League's longest-serving manager, having joined the club in 2012. He leaves with Burnley in the relegation zone and 4 points from safety. Joe Root has stepped down as the England men's Test cricket captain after 5 years. His position had been in doubt since a humiliating 4-0 drubbing in the Ashes, followed by defeat at the hands of the West Indies. Root has the record for the number of Test series as captain, but has secured only 1 victory in the last 17 matches. Patrick Geary reports.
Sometimes you don't need scores or even words, just a face. This was Joe Root at the end of England's series defeat to West Indies last month, their 4th in a row, and that would prove to be the end of his captaincy. This morning, a statement marked the close of a 5-year innings. Root said, "I have loved leading my country, but recently it's hit home how much of a toll it's taken on me and the impact it's had on me away from the game."
Eventually, you do start to realise that however passionate you might be about the job, and it's one of those jobs that does grab you, you never really want to give it up, however bad things are. One of the things you have to say is that it's a results-driven game. If you're not getting wins, which is what basically has been happening for the last 12 months, at some stage something has to change.
Joe Root has long been England's anchor, the outstanding batter of his generation.
And that is another magnificent 100 from Root. He gives a jump and a skip for joy.
He'd never been a permanent county captain when he was chosen to lead his country in 2017, a fresh and cheerful face to take the team forward. He'd captain England for more tests than anyone else in history and win more matches too. When lockdown forced the squad into biosecure bubbles, Root led them through it. But this would be as close as he got to the Ashes. His England team were unable to win any of the 3 series they played against Australia. Their most recent defeat came as part of a run of 1 win in 17 tests. Nevertheless, Root thought he could see a path through.
Yeah, but I'm still very passionate about taking this team forward, and I feel like there's the support of the dressing room behind me, and I'm desperate to turn that around.
It wasn't to be, but he will carry on in the team. Those who run English cricket talk of a reset. That's meant the off switch for the managing director, coach and now the captain. All three jobs remain unfilled.
You have to say that English cricket at the moment is in a real void. There's a vacuum there, and the people who will appoint Joe Root's successor haven't themselves been appointed yet. So it's a pretty crazy situation.
So who's in next? Well, maybe England will send for their Superman, Ben Stokes. He's a world-class all-rounder, but has taken time away from the game recently to look after his mental health. And as Root's friend, he'll know just what's involved in one of English sport's most stressful jobs. Patrick Geary, BBC News.
And that is it from the BBC News at 6. Our next bulletin is at 10. On BBC One, we'll join our news teams now, wherever you are. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Ross Atkins with Outside.